Good morning, everyone. This is a re-recording of the In Training ETPL quarterly provider webinar that was held on Thursday, September 26th. We had some difficulties and some issues with the recording, so I just thought I would re-record. And additionally, there were several very good questions in the previous webinar. So I hope to add those in today to the presentation. So our meeting agenda today, we are going to discuss staffing changes, system enhancements, federal reporting, funding for training, monitoring promoted certifications, and Q&A. So we always have time for our question and answer session. Again, I am trying to incorporate a lot of those questions that were answered or asked during the previous webinar into the presentation today. We also, after the Q&A time, we will do our new provider orientation, again, incorporating questions that were asked from the previous presentation. So my name is Kate Mosgrip. I am the Director of Training Quality Assurance at the Department of Revenue here. So many of you are used to working with David Mattingly. David Mattingly has gone back to his love of classroom training. So he is no longer with the state in working in training. So I know several of you got very used to emailing him directly, so please don't do that anymore. He's not around. So we do have the In Training mailbox, and I have the email address up here on the screen. So please, any questions, comments, concerns that you have, forward them to the In Training website. Additionally, central office here in Indianapolis is reorganizing, and teams are being reorganized to better align work functions and priorities. So for the time being, I am over in training. We're hoping to add additional staff soon. I don't know exactly how soon, but hopefully we'll get someone in pretty soon, and we'll be able to introduce them to you here pretty soon as well. So system enhancements. You as providers can now terminate programs in training. This makes you more self-sufficient with a more responsive system. So to terminate a program location, all you have to do is in the upper right-hand corner where it says assign status, there's an assign status button, click that. And then you can click this terminate radio button under the status panel. A comment is required for you to add something, and they're telling us why you're terminating the program, and then click submit. So if for some reason you terminate a program and then change your mind, or you find out from your leadership that you really shouldn't have terminated that program, you cannot reverse that, unfortunately. You would have to contact the In Training mailbox to request for us to reactivate the program. And just as a reminder, if you are terminating the program, federal reporting is still required if it was available at any time during that program year. Okay, system enhancement. Our performance metrics tab is available. So we have talked to you about that in the last couple of webinars that we've had. Since federal reporting has completed, this is going to be updated with that federal reporting information in the month of October. So that means all these numbers are going to be updated. Another piece about this is the performance indicator, the very top panel, where it's what's on your screen says no data available. That is currently turned off. This will be turned on in October. So this is the performance metrics piece of one of the requirements for staying on InTraining and the ETPL is that you have your performance metrics at a certain level. And we do have all of that over on the right-hand side. So please check out, go into your account, check out your performance tab, and look to see kind of where you are. If you're not where you want to be and not where you think you should be, just remember this is all based on the federal reporting data that you have submitted to us. So what's a way to fix that? We always tell people, providers, that it's a great idea to report after each and every cohort. So that can help boost some of your information. Additionally, adding in any certification information. So reaching out to your previous students and asking them, hey, have you received your certification? You know, did you take your exam? Did you now get that licensure or that industry recognized certification from the exam? Did you pass your exam? And then you can add that into your information, again, on the student data tab, and updating that information will update this tab as well. A question that we had previously, will it indicate why you are getting that rating? So the rating that you are getting is based, again, on your federal reporting. So just know that what you're reporting to us, we have put into this performance tab. There are additional things that go into that. So for instance, median earnings and earnings per hour that we look at, that comes from other databases that are outside of DWD. It may be UiTax. There are several other databases that are not coming to mind at the very moment, but that certain people within DWD have access to, and that all goes into the federal reporting. So again, this is all based on federal reporting. Another question that was asked previously, where can we find information on performance? So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation for a second, and I am going to show you where you can find that information on the DWD website. So the DWD website, if you as a provider have not been on there yet, definitely something I recommend that you look at. So here's our DWD website. So under this training services dropdown, you can go to this InTraining hyperlink, and that will take you to the InTraining webpage. Now, under this provider button right here, so this gives you some background information, what an ETP or an eligible training provider is. And we also have all of these resources down at the bottom here for you. So those of you that have been around for federal reporting are well acquainted with this data section. This is where you get your federal reporting templates and the instructions document that tells you what to put where in the template. It also gives or has a link to the most current federal reporting webinar, which walks through exactly how to do your federal reporting. And there's also our guidance document. Now, just in case you ever get lost, or occasionally, especially if you have your InTraining portal saved in your bookmarks, occasionally those links can jog. So if you ever cannot get in through your link, we have the InTraining portal right here. And then a user guide, how to use our portal, what to click and where to go to find certain information. Now, what we are talking about from the question that was asked, how do you know what is being looked at for federal performance? We have all of these resources here. So we have our policy, which gives you a 30,000-foot view of responsibilities and things in our policy that do affect you. If you're looking for more specific items, if you go to this in-training and ETP list procedural guidance, this will give you all of the nitty-gritty. So I'm going to open that very quickly, and this will show you here exactly what we are looking at for so many things. So what we look for in our applications and our eligibility, which shows both the in-demand and our performance metrics. Now, in-demand metrics are statewide. They're also looked at regionally, and that is done by the Research and Analysis Department here at DWD. So that's not really something that you can control. But we do have this performance metrics section. And right now, minimum performance metrics are the best of second or fourth quarter completers employment rate greater than 30%. So that means 30% of the people that have graduated from or completed your program, we're looking to see if at least 30% of those completers are employed. We also look to see about credential rates. So have 50% or greater of the people that have completed your training program receive their credential. We also are looking at completers' median earnings equal to or above $10 an hour. So people that have completed your program, that have gone on to receive their certification, hopefully, are they employed? And are they making at least $10 an hour or more? Now, one thing to note about these is we've got ORs on all of these. So if you are meeting one, at least just one of these, if you have 30% of your completers employed, or you have 50% of your completers credentialed, or the total annual completers median earnings at $10 an hour or over, you are good. Again, these are minimum standards. This is what we are looking at to maintain your ETPL and in-training inclusion or your status. So please look through this guidance document. It's called a technical assistance at the top. Again, it is named something else on the in-training website. So I'm going to stop sharing this right now and go back to our presentation. Okay, just checking my notes to make sure I addressed everything that I wanted to address there. Okay, now let me find my document so I can share it with you again. Okay. There we go. So additionally, just as we looked at all of those minimum standards in our guidance document, we also have them over on the right-hand side of your performance data tab. So notice that our performance data is looking at a 2-year metric, a single-year metric, and a 4-year metric, and those can be changed by using this term drop-down menu. Okay, so let's move on to federal reporting. So federal reporting has completed for the 2023 to 2024 program year. Remember that federal reporting is due the month of July. So in July this year, we had a great response rate from you providers. So we had 90% of programs reported on time. So thank you so much for that. Now, we are still accepting federal reporting for those programs that did not report during the month of July. So if programs have not been reported on, they were put into a pending data status. And so this is kind of like a suspended status, and this is going to remain until early February of 2025. So this is, again, per our policy. It's going to be in that document we just looked at that states that if programs do not report on time, they are suspended for 6 months. But during that 6-month period, we are still expecting for federal reporting to be completed. So if you have one of those programs that did not report on time, you should have received multiple emails letting you know that. So some questions that came from the previous webinar: how does this affect apprenticeship programs? Well, it really doesn't, because apprenticeship programs do not federally report through the InTraining website. Apprenticeship programs report their programs and their participants and all of that data directly to the Department of Labor. Someone asked or mentioned that their apprenticeship program was suspended, and they were initially told they did not need to report. So there is a difference between apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are governed by the Department of Labor. So again, apprenticeships, registered apprenticeship programs that are registered through the Department of Labor do not need to report through the InTraining program. If your program is a pre-apprenticeship that is not yet governed by the Department of Labor, it does need to be reported through InTraining. So that could be why this training provider had an issue. Again, please know that if you are a pre-apprenticeship, you do need to report through InTraining program. Or I'm sorry, the InTraining portal. Program descriptions and funding. So it's come to our attention that some providers are putting Work One guarantees of funding on their websites, on their Insta pages, on their Facebook pages. So if you are one of those providers, please remove that guarantee of funding immediately. So part of that is funding is never, ever guaranteed. So we cannot guarantee funding for anyone based on so many factors. And those factors can change based on regional things, based on regional requirements. So know that WIOA, which is one part of funding, has certain qualifications, and funding through a Work One is based on the student. A training provider or a training program does not receive the funding. It's always the student that receives the funding. So the student has to qualify for the funding. So if anybody has any questions, please reach out to your Work One. I have somewhat knowledge of funding, but I have very level knowledge of funding. The Work One offices and the career advisors in a Work One office, they are the experts. So they are the ones your students need to be talking to. Additionally, if you have this guarantee of funding on your webpage, again, your Instagram, your Facebook page, and you have the DWD or Work One logo, DWD has a process for being able to even use that logo. So please, again, take that off immediately if you have that on any of your marketing pages. And please know that DWD leadership, in conjunction with Work One leadership, we are working on verbiage that you can use and you can put on your websites. We just don't have it yet. And as soon as I have information on that, I will be reaching out to you and letting you know about that. Okay, so additionally, there is some confusion, I think, with training providers as to what is WIOA funding and WRG enrollment. So WRG is the Workforce Ready Grant. That is another grant for students that, again, has certain qualifications. That, again, is on the DWD webpage. And so to be able to qualify for WRG, a training provider or program must first be on the ETPL and receive WIOA funding. So if you go into a Work One and you say, I just need a grant, or my student needs a grant, they're not going to know exactly which one you're talking about, because both require that the student go to the Work One and register or qualify for both WIOA funding and WRG enrollment. So please know that those are two very different programs, and students need to talk to the Work Ones to be able to enroll in both. Let's see, a question from previous. What is the process for utilizing DWD branding when mentioned in program descriptions? So in the in-training portal, where you are entering your DWD descriptions or the descriptions of your training program, you don't really need to mention anything about DWD, about funding, about branding, anything like that. In those program descriptions, we want to know what your training program is covering. Again, this is for full transparency for any student that is researching a program that they may want to go to. So for example, I used a plumbing program. So for Plumbing One, we want to know, or potential students will want to know, in this Plumbing One course, you will be learning basic definitions. You will have exposure to most commonly used tools. You will be looking at resources that you will be using as a plumber commonly. This will lead you to the Plumbing One exam through whichever accrediting body you're going to use. And also, where can students who graduate from your program utilize this information? In which industry? In which parts of the industry? So I've received my Plumber One certification. I can go to a plumbing company. I can go to an apprenticeship. I can go to a maintenance facility, or maybe use this in an apartment facility in their maintenance department, something to that effect. And I hope that clears that up a little bit more. If not, please, again, feel free to reach out to the in-training website. Let's talk about monitoring for a few minutes. So monitoring, we talk about it each and every webinar, and monitoring is something that is done annually. So does everybody get monitored every year? No, I don't have the bandwidth for that. We don't have the staff for that. But know that monitoring is of selected providers. Providers are selected by many different factors, up to and including just randomly selecting providers. And why do we monitor? We monitor to ensure compliance with statutory, regulatory, and policy requirements. Again, those are in that document that we just looked at on the in-training website. We monitor to help identify areas in need of administrative, programmatic, or systematic improvement. So we monitor in an effort to try and help you locate or identify some of your pain points as a provider. Not everybody is perfect. You may have a great program, but maybe it's really hard to get all of those administrative requirements completed. The federal reporting, the annual review, all of these silly little things, even though you're amazing in the classroom. We are here to try and help identify those and to try and help you get those resolved so you can provide the best kind of training possible. So policy gives us the right to place in training providers or ETPL programs on an improvement plan or remove them from the ETPL or in training altogether. Now, we're not going to do this arbitrarily. If we had a bad meeting or a bad visit, it doesn't mean you're being removed immediately. We definitely try and do the improvement program first, but we are looking at things again to make you a better trainer to conform to policy and administrative requirements. If we do need to put you on an improvement plan, or hopefully not to remove you altogether from in training or the ETPL, that may be for poor performance. So those performance metrics. If you're putting a lot of people through the training, but they're not being employed afterwards, or they're not obtaining that credential, that's what we're looking for in the performance. If the funding is being misused and not used for the training programs the way you're telling us it is. You could be removed from in training if you lose your ETPL fundable status. Again, based on in-demand metrics and the performance metrics, as well as federal reporting and annual review. If we find evidence of falsification of documentation, or if we find some really troubling things in the site visit, maybe equal opportunity or ADA compliance is not being adhered to, and we've pointed that out in our report, but it's not being completed or it's not being fixed. Let's see. So what do we do when we conduct a monitoring visit? So these monitoring activities include application and portal reviews. So we're looking at your in-training portal, where we'll conduct a site visit, and we will be reviewing student records, whether they're in physical form, if you have them in a box for a certain cohort or a certain program year, or if you have them digitally in an LMS. We're going to be looking at student records. DWD reserves the right to visit any training provider at any time on site. We usually schedule them, but they could be unscheduled as well. And we also request providers keep participant records for us to be able to look at them. So there are certain things we have to see in these participant record files. So again, monitoring activities can include, but are not limited to, site visits, whether they're scheduled or unscheduled. We'll be doing staff and or student interviews. Now, we have had people ask, student interviews, isn't that an invasion of privacy? We're not really comfortable sharing our students' contact information. Since these are programs that have the potential to receive federal funding, we need to be able to do interviews with students. So we really suggest, we strongly recommend that you tell your students about that as they are registering or enrolling in your program. Put it in your enrollment agreement so the students can refer to this at any time, that we can reach out and ask them some questions. Now, are we asking them specific questions? Generally, we're going to be asking students their general feeling about the training program. Did you feel you got the information you needed or the training you needed to be able to take and pass your credentialing exam? Did you get enough hands-on time and practice to be for the skills that you are learning? Did you feel like it was an easy class or was it super hard? Could you ask your instructor questions? Those are the kind of things that we're looking for. We're looking for general impressions. We may observe a classroom. We want to see how the students are interacting with the training material and how it's being presented. Again, participant records, any student records we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at resources, tools, and the curriculum that you go by. We're looking at program costs and instructor credentials. That is one of your responsibilities as a provider, is to ensure that your instructors are maintaining minimum credential standards. We're looking for ADA compliance, equal opportunity compliance. We'll review financial records and any requirements related to the in-training and ETPL policy. Okay, so this is a time when I ask for any questions, and here are a couple of questions that came from the previous presentation. Are you interviewing random students or students awarded from Work Ones? The students that we select to interview are randomly chosen. So again, with your federal reporting, you're required to report all students, regardless of funding source. So that means you should be reporting to us students that are private pay, students that have the WRG money, that have WIOA money, students that have maybe another private grant, students that are private pay. So we are selecting students at random. We don't even pay attention to their funding source most of the time. Again, it's not invasive for us to be able to talk to the students. We're not asking for specific information. We're not asking for their social security number. We're not asking for, are you employed and what kind of salary are you making? We're asking for general impressions of the training. And we may also want to talk to instructors or other staff members, again, to just get a general impression of the training. Sorry, I didn't finish that thought. Okay, now let's talk about requirements for promoted list inclusion. So promoted list are ETPL certifications. So to get on the promoted list, an application must be submitted. Now, this can be submitted by anybody. It doesn't just have to be submitted by a training provider or an industry representative or a business. We can accept it from anybody. If there's a particular student that says, wow, I really want this credential and I don't see it on there, they can submit an application for the promoted list, for promoted list inclusion. So there are applications, and those are on the DWD website. If you'll remember, we went to go to the training provider section or web page. We used that training services drop down. Promoted industry certifications is one right above the in training. So that is on the same website. So our promoted list guidelines is we want high value credentials on the promoted list. So what is a high valued credential? So Those credentials are defined as those that help an individual find employment or move up in the workforce and or accelerate a student's progression into and through post-secondary education and training. Wow, that's a lot of words. Basically, what that means is we want certifications on the promoted list that are recognized and valued by industry. So again, using the Plumber One example, Plumber One, level 1 is on the promoted list because we were told by our industry partners that they recognize that certification, they recognize the skills in that certification brings, and they also value that certification and the skills that are associated with that. So any applications are for these certifications, these high value credentials are reviewed by our industry partners. And they let us know, they are the experts in their industry. So they let us know, yeah, this is something we recognize. This is something we think is great. These are skills we need. So we value this credential. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the promoted list or the industry certifications web box. Again, the address is down at the bottom. Promoted list questions from previous. Do you work with employers throughout the state or just locally? Anybody throughout the state can submit these applications. Our industry partnerships are throughout the whole state of Indiana. It's not just a section of Indiana. So, or a specific region. Can you define Indiana-based industry? Do they have to be headquartered in Indiana, or can they hire or contract employees in the state? So an industry, a Indiana-based industry is an industry that is here in Indiana. These businesses are here in Indiana. These training people that are hiring are here in Indiana, industry-based. And again, taking half a step back to working with employers throughout the state and our industry representatives. We are talking with people, we have representatives throughout the whole state of Indiana because there are certifications up in Region 1. Their needs are going to be a whole lot different than maybe in Region 6. So we are contacting people from throughout the whole of Indiana to get their information or get their opinion on these certifications. What advantages are there if a certification is promoted? So anything on our promoted list is ETPL. It is fundable. So that's why it is recommended. It's sought after to be on the promoted list. Okay, so to be on the promoted list, we have added some additional requirements for applications. And this is on the application, but we have to have supporting documentation to even be able to review the application. So we must have documentation of approval and support. Whoops, I'm so sorry. We must have documentation of approval and support from local entities and a copy of the credential awarded. That has to go along with the application. So this documentation of approval and support are going to come from Indiana-based entities. Again, employers, businesses right inside of Indiana here. And so you or anyone who wants to submit an application for one of these certifications to be added need to include at least 3 letters of support, again, from Indiana-based entities that are current, so dated within a year. So we're going to be looking for things dated within the 2024 year. And what we want to see in those letters of support from these entities are what kinds of positions and how many positions do they individually use this credential for? How the credential is utilized in their hiring process. So that could be, we weed out anybody who doesn't even have this credential, or we guarantee anybody that has this credential, they at least get an interview in our hiring process. So these entities or these businesses that we are looking to receive those letters of support from are local, regional, and state employers or professional groups. It could be a trade organization, statewide economic business development organizations, or your local workforce development board. And if you wanted to look up your local workforce development board, we have the web page listed at the bottom of the page here. Okay, so we review these applications twice a year, in April and in October, and our October deadline is coming up on October 15th. So that's why we're talking about this again. We want to let you guys know, so in case you wanted to submit application for a certification, or as you're talking to your students or industry partners, businesses that you partner with, and they mentioned, hey, we'd love to get this on, this to be a recognized certification, you can suggest to them to submit the application. And again, just as a reminder, to be included on the list, the certification must both be recognized and valued by employers. Okay, so a reminder, we are coming to the end of our season provider section. So just a reminder, our fourth quarter webinar is going to be December 12th at 10 a.m. and that is Eastern Standard Time. All right, so our Q&A section, and I'm going to go through a couple questions that were asked. Are all trainings required to be on in-training? So in-training is not a requirement for you to do business and to provide trainings in Indiana. We do recommend you be on in-training. If you look at it, it's almost like free advertising for you as a training provider. So if a student walks into a Work One and says, hey, I want to be a plumber, the case manager or career advisor at the Work One is going to talk to the student, qualify the student, and then sit them down, at least in part, with the in-training website and say, I want you to look through all of these training programs and decide which one is best for you, or I want you to pick your top 3 choices, and we can talk about which one is best for you. So it is almost like free advertising for you. So we do recommend you're on in training. Requirements for potential students. How are they qualified at a Work One? Again, the Work Ones are the experts, so I will refer you to a Work One. I know that WIOA training is available for students that qualify, but other than that, certain regions apply for additional grants and additional funding. So it's all very regionally based. So please contact your Work One office for that information. And again, there is on the in-training provider page, underneath the data section, there is another section that has a link to an interactive map for Work One location. So you can use that to find your local Work One, the one that's closest to you, the one that you're hopefully working with already, so you already know. But if you don't, if you wanted to look for others, in your region, you could look there. That would give you an interactive map to show you which counties are included in which regions. It also gives you contact information, hours of operation for a location, and also any even directions to get there. Requirements for funding, so many factors go into funding. I'm just going to refer you to the Work One offices. They are truly the experts. I'm new to the area. Is there a way I can browse the in-training website as a possible student to see things that are available? So again, I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to go back to our in-training website. And I'm going to show you again that you can, let's see where, okay. I'm trying to get there, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay. So here is the technical document we were looking at earlier. So again, this is our DWD webpage, training services in training. This is the promoted industry certifications we looked at earlier. Training webpage, which is what we're on, and the training provider button. So again, this is our procedural guidance. We also have a new training provider orientation here with some frequently asked questions. This is where our past webinars are posted. And under this helpful links, this is the Work One locations here that we talked about earlier. Also a link to promoted industry certifications. If you wanted to go to the portal, so our portal, and I'm going to take you, well, no, I'm going to take you to the portal. I changed my mind back and forth, right? Women's prerogative. What is that? What happened there? Oh, that I clicked contact in training. So you can also contact us. So this is the in training portal right here. Now you do not have to log in to be able to use this. So anybody who does not have a login can come down here to this search program section. And we have this refined search section drop down here as well. So if you as a provider just want to see what's out there, Work One's use this for prospective students as well. So for instance, if I want to be a plumber, okay, and if I want to look for programs that are only fundable, and I can even take this down and sort by a particular region. And within that region, I can look at a particular county. I can also look to see if something is offered in person, offline, or if it's 100% online. I also can see or filter for exceptional performance criteria or minimum performance criteria. And I can also look for certain credentials. If I am looking for an apprenticeship or a licensure, a CDL, a CNA, an LPN. If I want to look for industry recognized certifications for a plumber, or I can choose all credentials. And then I can click this search and the system will think and it will start showing me all of these training providers and programs that offer the plumbing that I've been looking for. So go in and play with that. And that will give you a lot of good information. You can also see what people see when they look up your program. Okay, so I am going to go back to the webinar. Whoops, need to share it first. So note to self, I need 2 or 3 screens to be able to do this. Okay. So that concluded our Q&A section. As always, if you have any questions or if you are struggling with anything on the portal, you can always reach out to the intraining at dwd.in.gov. So that goes to a shared mailbox. I check this several times a day. My standard for getting back to you is I try very hard to get back to you, respond to any emails within 24 hours. Anything submitted through the InTraining portal, applications, or any changes to an application, an update, I have a 3 business day standard. So I try and get to all of those within 3 business days. Now, please keep in mind that I am a one-woman show right now until I can get some additional help in. So things may be a bit delayed, but I am sure trying to get 2 emails within 24 hours and applications and any other portal items within 3 business days. Now, in addition to talking or sending questions or comments through InTraining, requesting a meeting. Okay, why won't that go forward? Oh, we do have a Calendly link, and I will be, let's see if I can get to that really quick, because I think somehow that ended all the way at the bottom of our new provider orientation. So let me go back. So, okay, what if I need to discuss something with an InTraining staff member? Again, reach out to the InTraining shared mailbox. We also have our Calendly link right here. So I am notified of any requests. Unfortunately, Calendly is not tied to my personal email or calendar. So know that if you request a certain time, I may have to modify that time, but I will be reaching out with a couple different options or asking you for a couple different options. So thank you so much for your kind attention today. Again, reach out if you have any questions. Again, I try and get back within 24 hours. And just so those of you seasoned professionals are aware, this finishes our webinar portion, and I'm going to be starting the new provider webinar here in just a few minutes. For those of you that are brand new to InTraining, are new providers and are like, what the heck is going on? What do I do now? I thought this was going to be so much easier. We're going to be providing some additional guidance. If you are a seasoned provider that just wants a refresh on things, that has some questions that hopefully will be answered, feel free to stick around. All right, so I am going back to our new provider orientation. So, hello newbies. Welcome to the world of being a training provider. So I registered as a training provider. What the heck do I do now? So let's go over some basic definitions. So what is DWD? You said you're with DWD. You keep showing us DWD stuff. What the heck is DWD? So the DWD, the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, is a state agency that offers a range of services related to career exploration, education, and training. So one of DWD's purposes is to manage training providers and the programs that they offer. And this is done through the InTraining system or portal, which houses all that training provider information and program information and the locations where they're offered, as well as the eligible training provider list, which we affectionately call the ETPL. So what the heck is a Work One office? And how do I, as a provider, work with them? So Work One offices work with prospective students. So they help them with counseling and assistance to obtain a new job or a better job. And they also help with career counseling, researching and selecting training programs, and applying for any potential funding. Remember, guys, funding is never, ever, 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 ever guaranteed. Training providers, you guys are encouraged to cultivate relationships with your Work One staff. Since they're the ones that work directly with prospective students, if you get to know your staff and they know you and your training programs and what you're all about, it's really easy for them to be able to say, well, I see you've picked three really good programs. I know this provider is very committed to helping you decide or achieve your career goals. Now, all of these programs would probably get you there. So students, remember, students get their choice. Students get to choose which program they're doing, but it never hurts you to work with a Work One. So what is Access Indiana and why do I need it? So Access Indiana is the front door to the state. So any of our programs or applications, any of our systems that are online for the state of Indiana are going to go through Access Indiana. So it's kind of like a front door to get you to all of those different systems and to help you complete the things that you want and need to complete online. So Access Indiana is required to access the in-training system. What is the in-training system and why do I need to be on it? Well, you heard, if you were around for the first part of the webinar, you heard that in-training is where we store all of the training information. So your information as a provider, where you are holding your trainings and what programs you are holding at your locations. So it holds all that information as well as ETPL list. So why do you need to be on it? Again, this is almost like free advertising for you. Work One career advisors are going to be working with potential students to get on in training and to search for programs, just like I showed you a little bit ago. They also assist them in the receiving funding. Once again, funding never ever guaranteed. So as a provider, if you submitted your location or a program application, you may have been referred to the Office of Career and Technical Schools, OCTS, to see if you need their authorization. Now, who needs OCTS authorization? So any provider training toward a short-term certification, less than a year long, that does, so if that credential program is less than a year long and does not have oversight by any board, commission, or body, we send you to OCTS to see if you need their authorization. So OCTS is required to operate for a training provider to provide their training if they do not have oversight by any board, commission, or body. If you are required to have OCTS, you cannot perform any training, you cannot do any business through your training provider account until you have OCTS. And that is also something that needs to be maintained. What are your responsibilities as a training provider? Well, according to our policy documents, again, you can find those on the in-training website. You have to do certain things. You have to review and comply with in-training and ETPL policies and procedures. Again, that's in that resources section of the in-training webpage. And when you get these slides, there is a direct link to that webpage. I've also shown you a couple times how to get there. You are required to ensure your instructor credentials meet minimum qualifications. You must maintain records on all participants. Again, this is regardless of funding source. So anybody, any of your students, anybody that has taken your training program, you must ensure that the training facility meets ADA requirements and is also is compliant with equal opportunity. You must maintain at least one active email address that is checked regularly. If we are communicating with you, whether it's through the portal, through an email, maybe a phone call, maybe a letter, we need to be able to have your reply within 5 business days. We know you're busy. We know you're running 12 things at once. You're juggling a lot of balls in the air. That's why we give you 5 business days to respond to any of our inquiries or any of our questions, anything that we need from you. You are required to complete the annual review of both your provider and program locations. So a year from having your first not even just your first, any of your program locations approved, you will be asked to go through and look at that information again. So that is your time to go through and make sure your user list is up to date. You as a provider can add new users. You can always also inactivate users that are no longer part of your organization or that have moved on to other job responsibilities. Same thing with the program. A year from your program being approved, you will be asked to go through and verify all of that information. Is your program description still accurate? Is that current enough? Are your instructor credentials updated? Are your costs updated? Are you still working with the curriculum that is loaded into the system? And then you are also required to complete your federal student reporting. And again, that is the month of July. So we do hold a federal reporting webinar at the end of June that takes you through exactly how to submit your federal reporting. That link you saw was in the data section of the resources part of the InTraining webpage. So there are a lot of resources. We are reaching out with reminders. We are responding to, okay, I watched the webinar, I downloaded the template, I've got the instruction document, but I'm still having issues. We're here to help you through all of that. Okay, so we've already looked at the DWD website previously. So I'm just going to go past that for right now. So now let's look at the InTraining portal. Now you will notice that there is this red bar that says test site only, no official data present. So what I'm going to be showing you is our UAT or our test site. So this is going to be everything that InTraining has. It just doesn't have live data with personally identifiable information of students or, anything that we can't really show you, if that makes sense. Okay, let me find my test site. Okay, so you should be seeing my test site. And again, since this is a test site, we still have our federal reporting banner up. So this is something during the month of July, you will see this banner if you're required to complete your federal reporting. Again, that's done. If you have not completed your federal reporting, please get that done. So here is your dashboard for as a provider. So notice we have our tabs over on the side here. So this provider action needed, this is your dashboard. This is going to show you what needs to be done. So if you submitted a question to us, or if you changed something in one of your programs or program location, then that's immediately going to go into a pending staff review. So I get that on my side and it says, hey, Kate, you need to look at this. And then if I have any additional questions, I'm going to send those questions back to you. And it's going to come to you in this information requested yellow bar here. So we can see here that we have 2 information requested items. So if I click on this, this is going to show me the program that had the information requested, and the comment section here is going to show you exactly what the question that I have is. And then if you scroll down, this is the second area. And if you wanted to see any additional details, you could click the view details, and it's going to take you to your program locations and your provider. So this is this is another section of the web page or the in-training section. So I'm going to click this again to close it. Now, anything in this pending data gray bar, this is federal reporting that did not get reported on time. So those programs are in a pending data status, and they will be for 6 months. So that's going to make it to the beginning of February. And again, this is showing you that the program is placed in pending data status for not completing federal reporting. So it's just letting you know you need to report on these 2 items. And then if I close that again, if you have anything that requires the annual review that we just talked about, your chance to go and update your location and your program information, you will see those here, and it will look very similar to the other 2. Now, if you have an annual review for your location, and actually this can happen anytime, on your users, you can see all of the users that are active in training right now. And you can see the role that they have. So we have training provider admin and a training provider. The difference between those 2 is the training provider admin has a few more bells and whistles, a few more things that they can do in the system. Now we have an active users and we also have inactive users. So again, you as a training provider can go in and you can add a new user by clicking this plus add user hyperlink. That's going to open the add user, complete the information, change your radio button to yes, and click submit. And that's how you add an additional user. Now, what if I wanted to, say, Test in Training has left the business and they are no longer part of my training program, then I can, and I want to inactivate them. I can come over to this edit hyperlink, and from here I can disable them and click submit. And on my users tab now, you can see that Test in Training is no longer here as an active user, but I could find them over here. Well, we have 21 entries, that's why. We can find them over here under our inactive. So there he is, our Test in Training right here. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you on your portal here is this demographics. No demographics available. This is not required, but if you wanted to go in and let us know if you are a women's business enterprise, if you are a minority business or a veterans business, all you have to do is change these radio buttons and click submit. And that would add to your demographics. Now this provider locations tab is going to show you all of your provider locations. So this is where you're doing your training programs. Now over here where it says program locations, this shows you how many programs you have registered at this location right now. So right now, let's see, Anderson campus has 0 programs associated. Test account location has 1 program. And if you click this drop down, it'll show you which program you have. And this is a quick and easy way to go to your program. And we'll look at the program here in just a second, but this gets you to your program location section of InTraining. Okay, I'm going to move back. Here's another way to get to all of your programs. So your programs under this programs tab. So this isn't going to tell us, this is almost the mirror of the provider locations. Remember how we looked at our location and we could look over here to see the programs? Well, here, this is our program. And here we can see where our location is. So we can see that the test book repair program is offered at the Indianapolis location. And once again, you can click this hyperlink and go to that location. So we, again, on both locations, just like with users, locations and programs will have these active and inactive programs. So remember, on your programs is when you are submitting your federal reporting, make sure you are checking the inactive program tab to see if you have programs that have been inactive during the program year that require federal reporting. And then we also have this reports tab. So you can run your own report out of InTraining for federal reporting. This will tell you exactly all of the programs that are subject to or require federal reporting for the current federal reporting year. You can run a report of programs, of locations, and any of your programs or locations that require annual review. So again, looking at our programs, if I went into one of my programs, so here is my program page. So again, since this program requires federal reporting, we've got our banner up there. So this is provider information, you as the provider. Here is the summary of our program. So remember, our program description and qualifications of instructors, remember, this is a test site. We want these more robust. We want to see that the qualifications of the instructor meets requirements for InTraining policies. So do they have an advanced degree? Do they have a degree? Do they at least have the certification that they are training to, along with at least 2 years of experience utilizing that degree? Do they have just 10 years of experience without the certification? Program description, people that are looking at this and want to know what your program is going to teach them. If they're going to be comparing 2 or 3 programs, we want a robust, a very good description of exactly what you're training. You are training basic information, basic definitions, basic processes, basic policies, basic resources that will be used, where people can utilize this information after they've received their qualifications. Any prerequisites, all of this information that you complete in the program application, this is where people are going to see it, including the cost of your program. Definitely making sure that is correct if you offer any financial aid. And also, if as part of your program, are you including the cost of the certification exam within your program? That is, especially if you're an ETPL provider, if funding is included, it's if your students have qualified for funding, or if the program has the potential to have students qualify for funding, we strongly recommend that you include the cost of the certification exam in your costs for your program. And that way, any of these students don't have to go scrounging for $50, $100, $300 to take the exam. That can be funded, that can be covered by any funding that is provided. We have the credentials section, a very quick summary of credentials, any program accreditation. So if you require OCTS or like the certified nursing assistant, this is where we want to see that you're accredited by the Department of Health. And also we're looking at the curriculum that is loaded. Here is that performance tab we keep talking about for the 2-year, the 1-year, and the 4-year metrics. And again, these are the performance indicators over here on the right-hand side that's going to show you why you are or are not meeting performance data requirements. And also know that right up here, performance indicator is where you're going to be seeing these icons. If your program meets minimum criteria, if it exceeds that criteria, if you're a newer training program, or you've had too few students, so less than 3 students, you may receive a performance waiver, performance criteria waiver, and that will be up here in this performance criteria. Or if your program does not meet minimum performance criteria, that will be seen here. Student data, here is where you can go in, and for any student data that is entered, if you need to update credential or assessment status. So have they taken the CNA exam and did they pass it? You can update that here. Federal reporting tab. This is only available during federal reporting. So if you need to federally report 0 students, that is done on this federal reporting tab. If you're going to be loading your template, that's going to be on the student data tab. Again, we walk you through all of that before federal reporting is due. Any supporting files, so that may be any supporting documentation. If you are a RAP or a registered apprenticeship, or a state certified earn and learn, or a certified apprenticeship, we would want to see all those documents here under supporting files. And then any comments that are made. So if you go in and you make changes to your program, you're going to see that here under staff changes. And if I'm responding back and put something in information requested, you'll also see that here. So there will be, I think I think it's named comments. I looked at it so much, I don't pay attention to what it says anymore, I'm afraid. So there will be another bar with a drop down just like this, so you can see what exactly I am looking for. And that is in addition to what is on your staff dashboard. Now, also, you as a training provider have the ability to terminate a program. So again, that's the assign status up here in the upper right-hand corner. If you click that, this is where you can terminate and where you need to add your comments. If you need to change your program and the provider location, this is going to work the same way. You would go in and click this edit, and that's going to open up. You may need to click enable editing again, but that's going to open up your program, or if you're on the location page, the location application. And this is where you can make any of your changes to the information that you've provided. Okay, let's see. And I think that's most everything I need to show you in the in-training system. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we've looked at our in-training portal. All right, silly. Okay, so how do I submit the provider location application? So where you're doing your training. So once you are approved as a provider on the in-training system, we send you an email that gives you a link that tells you how to do that. And the same thing is with the program location application. Once your provider location where you're going to do your training is accepted and approved, then we send an email for you to add in all of your programs. Okay, so my program location was approved. What is the ETPL and how do I get on it? So the ETPL, again, stands for the Eligible Training Provider List. And this is a foundation for workforce funding opportunities. So the programs that are on the ETPL receive potential funding for all students. And there are certain requirements, again, for students to meet to be able to receive the funding. So again, contact the Work One to do that, to find that information. Let's see, initial and continued eligibility. So to stay on in training and specifically the ETPL, you need to maintain your performance. So we've talked about this. That's what we looked at on the performance tab. So employment rate greater than 30% or 50% credentialing rate or $10 an hour median earnings. Now, we also have the in-demand metrics. So does the certification or credential that you are training toward, is it associated with a job or a job function that is in demand? So this is the in-demand metric. So what is in demand in Region 1 may be very different than what is in demand in Region 12 or Region 6. How do I get students for my training programs? Well, definitely Work One Office. We talked about that. Free advertising to be on in training. Job fairs are sponsored by Work One offices. So definitely get in on those. Local community organizations and associations. Word of mouth, the best type of advertising. You're doing an amazing job as a training provider. Your students are going to pass the word. Social media. Instagram, Facebook, if you can get on a trade web page or a web page, a business web page for business certification, something like that, and start touting. I know of a provider that actually has a billboard just a couple miles away from the exit to their location. So, I mean, that's definitely advertising. Put up flyers at Kroger or wherever you want to put up flyers, whatever makes sense for you guys. How will I be updated on important information as a provider? So we send notifications through the in-training system. You may have gotten one to remind you, or several to remind you about the training. Additionally, we provide webinars. So, we're sending things through the in-training portal. We may be emailing, we may be calling. We always really strongly suggest people come to the webinars, and especially the annual federal reporting webinar. It's not required you do, but it's really going to help out. I think I learn something new every time we give one of these. If for some reason you cannot attend, the webinar slide deck will be sent to all providers through the in-training system. And we are also going to post the links to the webinars on in-training website. So again, just like we spoke about before, if you're around for the previous part of the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the in-training web box. We also have the Calendly link right here. Again, we may need to kind of discuss some of the times, but definitely Calendly. And question and answer, and please let us know if you have any questions. So let me go through some questions from the previous. I've tried to get in touch with someone at a work one and have never received a reply. Who would you recommend we reach out to? In that case, I strongly recommend that you go into the work one. Start building relationships there. That way you have a contact. I will tell you that sometimes there are certain work ones that have turnover. So you may have to build a couple relationships. Once a student is approved for funding, is their funding guaranteed through the completion of their training? It absolutely is. If they are guaranteed for funding, it will put them through the entire class. Now, what if they have to kind of put it on pause or something? That's going to be a little more up to you. So life happens to all of us. So if they start a program and then life happens and they need to pause for 6 weeks, if you want to let them come back and complete that training, then you've got your money already. It's already paid for. If they're gone for a year and they may have to restart the process. Generally, funding is only provided once for a student. So at that point, it would kind of be up to you. What is the annual review access that is going to be through the in-training system? So again, that's where, a year after being approved, that's where we just ask you to go through and check all the information on both, well, depending upon which one is being reviewed. If it's on a location, check your information on all that. Should we put the data in? Okay, I don't know what just happened there. Should we put the data in as the class ends or just before the annual review? So annual review meeting federal reporting. So definitely put data in as the class ends after each and every cohort. That is going to save you a lot of stress and a lot of hassle in the month of July. Plus, it helps your performance data tab. If we update info during the annual report, will that hold up the process of anything with invoicing and the like? So when you are in annual review, we give you like 30 days to get it done before it's due. If it's not done in the system by the time it is due, that's the review of everything, then we give you 60 days and we will put you in information requested at that point. As long as you get your information updated and you complete your annual review, there's going to be no break in services, no break in like the funding stream, no break in any of that. So you don't have to worry about it. So make sure you're getting that done. Where would I find detail on completing my annual review, placement, graduation? All of that is reported to us through federal reporting. So again, that's going to be your student data tab, your federal reporting tab, and that is done in the month of July for the previous year. How to enter federal reporting. Again, we have a webinar that we are going to go through all of that with you right before it happens. Last year's webinar is on the in-training provider webpage. Please feel free to watch it at any time. It's available 24/7. Do I have to wait for OCTS authorization before I can begin training? Yes. If you are required to have OCTS, you cannot start training without OCTS. What is the first step when I have a student who wants to take your training? If they want funding, send them to a work one. Where are the past recordings or webinars? On the in-training provider webpage. We have classes that are held outside of our facility. Is there a way to show the class is actually held in another city? So that is part of your provider location application. So it'll say, who are you as a provider? What is your mailing address, your home base address? And then it'll ask for the location the training is being held at. Are nonprofits subject to reporting and clearance checks? Yes, they are. As a nonprofit, you're required to register with the Secretary of State. You are required to submit filings through or reports through the Department of Revenue. If you have more than 4 employees, you're subject to unemployment insurance. And nonprofits also are subject to student federal reporting. And who exactly is subject to UI tax? So the way I understand it, if you have at least 1 employee, you are subject to UI tax. Please contact the unemployment insurance office. They'll tell you exactly for sure. Can I ask if self-employment is included as part of federal reporting? Anything reported to DOOR is included for performance in federal reporting. What are the definitions to meet the 30%? Is part-time considered employed? Yes, it is. Again, we have that on your performance tab. It is also in the technical document. How do providers get paid when a program is fundable? Again, go to your work one. They've got the process down. They're the experts. Maintaining ETPL eligibility. We've been through that a couple times. Make sure you have your performance. Make sure you have the correct certification or credential that you're training to. And also, yeah, so that's most of it right there. The second and fourth fourth quarters after completion, we're looking at that data. Look at your performance tab. All right, so I think that is all of the questions that I had. Again, please feel free to reach out to InTraining if you have any additional questions or if you'd like to set a meeting. So thank you so much for being with me today. Have a wonderful day.